What's it like walking through the narrow back alleys of one of the most crowded neighborhoods in Metro Manila? Let's find out in this walk. Today, we're taking a simple walk through Sauyo, one of Quezon City's most crowded neighborhoods. And this is Quirino Avenue, a road that's almost always congested. If you've ever passed through here, you know how bad the traffic can get, especially along this section. You've probably seen foreign vloggers exploring some of Metro Manila's crowded neighborhoods, like Tondo. In many of those videos, you'll notice how friendly and welcoming Filipinos are, and how happy they are to chat with them. But what happens if a local Filipino does the same? How would people react? Well, technically, this isn't really a vlog. I'll simply be walking through the neighborhood and letting you see what it's like. Let's start here at the public market. At this hour, it's still relatively quiet, but by around 5 p.m., people begin coming out to buy groceries, run errands, and pick up food. So this street becomes much more crowded. This is what the scene looks like later that evening. On weekends like today, especially on Sunday afternoons and early mornings, the market gets even busier as residents from Sauyo, Bagbag, and West Fairview come here to shop. Alright, let's head deeper into the neighborhood. As you can see, the streets quickly become narrower and the surroundings feel much more crowded. Kids are playing outside, neighbors are chatting with each other, and everyday life is happening right on the street. Now let's go through this even narrower alley. This is what the back alleys look like. The pathways are very narrow, and the houses are built right next to each other. In some sections, there's only enough space for two people to pass each other comfortably. Many of these alleys also serve as shared spaces where residents go about their daily routines. You'll see children playing outside, neighbors chatting by their front doors, people doing laundry, and small sari-sari stores tucked between the houses. Unlike the main roads, there's very little vehicle traffic here, so the alleys become an extension of people's homes. It's common to see chairs set outside, families spending time together, and residents simply sitting outside to catch some fresh air. Since most houses open directly onto the alley, there's very little separation between private and public space, giving these streets a close-knit neighborhood feel. Since there isn't much room, motorcycles are often the only motorized vehicles that can get through these alleys. If someone needs to move furniture or bring in construction materials, everything usually has to be carried by hand. Walking through these back alleys gives you a better sense of what everyday life is like here than staying on the main road ever could. As you walk farther in, it's easy to see why first time visitors can get lost. The alleys branch off in different directions, with one narrow passage leading to another. Even though the layout can feel like a maze, people who have lived here for years know these shortcuts by heart and can find their way around without any trouble. Now, one of my goals on this walk is simply to see if I can make my way through these maze like alleys without relying too much on maps. Looking at the area from above, you can already tell how densely packed it is, but it's only when you're actually walking through it that you realize just how easy it is to lose your bearings. Many of the alleys look almost identical, with narrow pathways branching off in different directions. Some lead to another cluster of homes, while others end in small dead ends or open into slightly wider streets. Instead of planning a specific route, I decided to just wander around and let curiosity guide me. If an alley looked interesting, I'd take it and see where it led. Sometimes I'd end up back from where I came from, and other times I'd find myself in a completely different part of the neighborhood. That's part of what makes exploring places like this enjoyable. You never really know what's around the next corner. While filming, I also stopped a few times to chat with some of the residents, but I decided to leave those conversations out of the final video because I wanted to keep the focus on the walk itself this time. Maybe on our next walk, I'll include the conversations as well. People were naturally curious about why someone was walking around with a camera. A few asked if I was making a vlog, others simply smiled or watched as I passed by. Once I explained what I was doing, the conversations were relaxed and friendly before I continued on my way. Today is Sunday, and it's around 4 p.m., so it's normal to see more people outside than you would on a typical weekday. Many are sitting outside their homes or simply enjoying the late afternoon breeze. Children are running through the alleys or playing games with friends. So, what does it actually feel like to walk here? To be honest, if you've spent time walking through neighborhoods like this before, it doesn't feel unusual at all. After the first few minutes, you stop noticing how narrow the alleys are and simply adjust to the environment. People step aside to let each other pass. Motorcycles occasionally make their way through the lanes, and everyday life just carries on around you. It feels less like exploring a tourist destination and more like passing through a place where thousands of people simply go about their daily routines. Of course, carrying a camera attracts some attention. You'll notice a few people looking your way, especially children, who are usually the first to wave or say hello. Some adults may ask what you're filming or whether you're a vlogger. In my experience, the conversations are brief and casual. A simple explanation is usually enough, and then everyone goes back to whatever they were doing. One thing I noticed is that despite how confusing the layout can be, it's actually difficult to stay lost for very long. If you're unsure which way to go, you can simply ask someone. The residents know the neighborhood extremely well and are usually happy to point you in the right direction. More than once, someone gave me directions without hesitation, and a few even walked a short distance to make sure I was heading the right way. Experiences like that remind you that while the neighborhood may look intimidating, the people themselves often make it much easier to navigate. Alright, we're nearing the end of this walk. So, what do you think? Would you ever consider exploring neighborhoods like this here in the Philippines? I know this probably isn't something most people would do, especially if they don't have a reason to be here. But for me, it's a different way of experiencing a place. Walking through these narrow alleys lets you see a side of the city that you would completely miss if you stayed on the main roads. Every turn is different. Every neighborhood has its own character, and you never really know what you'll come across next. There's also a bit of adventure to it, not because I'm looking for danger, but because there's always that sense of curiosity. Where does this alley lead? Will it connect to another street? Will I end up completely lost? Exploring without a fixed route makes every walk feel a little different, and that's one of the things I enjoy most about it. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for joining me on this walk. I hope you enjoyed exploring this part of Quezon City with me. If you liked the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever explored a neighborhood like this? Or is this your first time seeing one up close? And if you're new here and enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing. I make daily life vlogs and walkthrough vlogs from different parts of Metro Manila and other places around the Philippines, showing both the well-known spots and the neighborhoods that don't usually make it into travel guides. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next walk. Cheers!